Chairman. The property in question is 188 acres in the southwestern corner of the city, bounded by Coit Road, Spring Valley Road, Central Expressway, and a residential neighborhood to the north. The purpose of the meeting this evening is to consider enacting a moratorium as allowed under the Texas Local Government Code on commercial property development. The purpose of the moratorium is to allow the city time to review existing ordinances to determine whether they're adequate to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the citizenry. It's the city's responsibility to provide for orderly development, to promote sustainability, social equity, economic development, and environmental stewardship, to deter urban sprawl and decay, and to enhance existing structures, properties, property values, and the quality of life. The state law requires us to present a set of findings as part of our movement towards a moratorium. And here's a selection from the ordinance that's been drafted. Current conditions, including land use and development, don't promote public health, safety, and welfare, and will be, in essence, continued if new regulations are not imposed. For example, vacancies lead to depressed rental incomes, poor property maintenance, and increased criminal activity, and existing regulations don't encourage new quality development. Also, that growth has occurred in the community since we last looked at the ordinances that apply to this corridor, and that it's probably time for the location and type of commercial development in this corridor to be evaluated. As you're aware, the city has recently engaged and completed a study of the West Spring Valley corridor in which we stated a number of objectives, among them to change the market perception of the corridor in order to attract new development, to diversify the retail offerings that are available in the corridor, to provide opportunities for more residential and mixed-use settings, and to coordinate development within the corridor and to adjacent properties. As we spoke of in the study session, the moratorium will apply only to commercial property development, and the statute describes commercial property as that is zoned for or authorized for uses other than, so not including, single-family, multifamily, heavy industrial, or quarry. Property development is defined as construction, reconstruction, or other alteration or improvement of commercial buildings, or the subdivision or replatting of a commercial subdivision. During the moratorium, the city may stop accepting permits, authorizations, and approvals that will be necessary for commercial land development. The moratorium will be limited to an initial 90-day time period. It will not apply to property developed for residential purposes. As we mentioned in the briefing session, you can only impose a moratorium on residential property if you can demonstrate a lack of essential public services and facilities. Also not subject to the moratorium will be projects already in place or vested in the provisions of the local government code. The ordinance must also provide a process for a waiver that will be reviewed by the City Council. This is a revised schedule based upon the fact that we postponed this first public hearing to this evening. The notification of the hearing was published on December 2nd for tonight's meetings. This evening will be your hearing, the council's hearing, and the first reading of the ordinance by the City Council. Then the law provides for a temporary moratorium to go into effect on the 5th business day following the publication of the notice, which would be December 9th. The second reading and adoption of the ordinance is scheduled by the council next Monday, December 13th, and the moratorium then would expire on the 90th day, which is March the 13th. Are there any questions?
Any questions of staff? Mr. Hanford.
Does the extension for the second potential 90 days, would that require a similar hearing as this?
It requires a hearing by the council only.
Council only, thank you.
And adoption of another ordinance. Not a second public hearing.
And that has to happen prior to the expiration. You mentioned that it had been a long time since we looked at the ordinances for this area. Do you know the approximate date?
Well, we did we created the mixed use category back in, I want to say the early to mid-90s. So it's been a number of years since we took a comprehensive look at that particular corridor.
Any other questions, staff? No? Okay. With that, I would like to open the public hearing. If you would like to come down and speak, please state your name and address for the record. We will have each party will have 15 minutes to speak in total, so if there's groups, be sure you are organized such that you give everyone plenty of time to speak. So, since the city is initiating this, Ms. Hyde, do you have anything else you want to add? Like to,
Mr. Chairman, I think Monica is going to try to answer some of the questions. Unfortunately, some people misunderstand what my comments were intended to be. Sorry, I'm hard of hearing. I have a patch over my ear, had some skin cancer and some other procedures done this week, so I'm a little short with my responses. Be this as it may, a public hearing is an opportunity for public citizens to give their comments. It's not a Q&A period. It's not a question and answer period, unless you choose to do so. The normal process that's followed most everywhere in the Metroplex is a citizen speaks and then sits down. And then the commission or the council, the case may be, will respond to any questions or comments that are made or staff will. That's my only point, is that when someone's finished speaking, then we'll try to respond to those issues. A comment was made about why didn't you address this when you were doing the tax increment financing, the TIF district. Just by way of reminder, the TIF is a zone that's created to provide financing mechanisms for public improvements. It has nothing to do with land use regulations or with subdivision regulations. So it has nothing to do with the zoning or subdivision or site plans or any of that matter. It just has to do with a financing mechanism for the construction of public improvements. And I think Monica can address the issues about what's the urgency, why are we doing a moratorium now? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to back up maybe just a little bit, as you heard and as you know, we've been working on this, our study, our vision for this area for 15 months plus. And our final briefing at the council was not 4 or 5 months ago, it was November the 15th. And so, you know, there was a bit of a gap. We saw them in July, and then we returned to them for the final briefing in November. And as you know, this has basically been a council-led study. The Planning Commission was not involved, but your involvement will begin as we review the ordinances. As far as urgency, there's no particular situation that we're responding to, but there's also no need to delay. I mean, we finally now have the vision. We know what sort of tools we need to utilize to begin progressing towards it. There's simply no reason to delay.
thank you for your comments. Any questions of staff?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Smith, if I could. You said a public hearing is simply the public is addressing the commission, and it's not a question and answer. But if the commission member needs some clarification of what maybe a public speaker has spoken about, I hope that that's still permissible.
It certainly is, sir. The whole point is that it's not a Q&A back and forth, unless that's what the commission wants to do. But the point is to get the speaker to make all the questions, comments, and then have an opportunity to respond, whether it's by staff or the commission.
Because many times there's a speaker will speak and I'm really uncertain what he's really said or how he's interpreted something, and I may want a clarification question to him to see a little bit deeper what that's all about.
I understand that, and I've lived here for 29 years, and I've seen that too.
Okay.
The point is make your comments, questions, whatever it is, and then give us an opportunity to respond to it instead of.
I just didn't want to thwart the future clarification of something the speaker has said.
Correct.
So, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, then I'll close the public hearing. I would like to thank the staff for that clarification, specifically Ms. Hyde. In response to some of the speakers' comments, I think Ms. Hyde clarified, but there was not any, I'm not aware of any impending event that took place that suddenly made this become necessary. It was simply a matter of, it was time to make a decision, and, you know, when we consider a moratorium, obviously one of the reasons you do that is to prevent any further development from taking place prior to you having a chance to develop any changes to regulations. And so, yeah, there's no reason to delay. So I think that was my opinion. I think that's probably the opinion of most of the commissioners up here. But thank you very much for your comments on it. Okay, any more, any discussion on this item? Questions, comments? Mr. Hand?
Comment. Just a little bit of a recap on things. The city's been involved in the market analysis of the study area. And I think one of the objectives of the study of Spring Valley was to then maybe take a look at the vision for the future for Spring Valley, and then get to a point where you can ensure that there's nothing going on that would detract or deter the vision for Spring Valley's future. It seems to me that this is the perfect time. Somebody used the term timeout earlier. It's a 90-day timeout. If we need additional 90 days, I guess the city could ask for that. But I think it seems like a logical step. Now that the market analysis has been done, let's do no harm. Let's not let anything come in that might ultimately derail the vision. So I think a timeout here, like my 9-year-old gets occasionally, is probably good for the health of everything long term. Just on a personal note, I want to say that as long as we're showing our resumes tonight, I've lived within walking distance of the study area in question for 21 years. And I've lived literally within 100 yards for 11 years of the study area. And I can attest that there is ample political will to do something about Spring Valley. It's time to reinforce our southern perimeter, or it's going to continue. Mr. Laska touched on 3 neighborhood associations that came over a year ago to the city to request a development moratorium on Spring Valley. So personally, I fail to see the urgency that the city is cramming down anyone's throat. Again, as a homeowner down there, I would like to see some urgency. I hope we get urgency along Spring Valley. So I'm not sure I see the urgency that's worrisome or anything. I'd like to see more urgency with matters to Spring Valley. Again, I see this as a timeout. It's a chance to study what might be a little bit more appropriate zoning in that area. And once that's found, hopefully we can lay that down and move on with a brighter future. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. If we have no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Bright?
Mr. Chair, I move that we recommend approval of the ordinance implementing the temporary moratorium as presented by staff.
We have a recommendation to enact the moratorium. Do we have a second? Mr. Pugh?
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes 7-0. With no further business before the City Planning Commission, I declare the December 6th special call meeting adjourned.